Hello and welcome back. In this video we are going to add our message schema. So I'll create the message.schema, or you can call it message.model, whichever one you want. Okay, .ts, and let me just copy the contents of this file and then use it here, and then we'll start making the necessary changes. So at first I'll change this to message schema, and then this is going to be message. Okay, and then I'll change the name to message model and then export it, and the document will be iMessage document. Okay, and then we don't need this conversation. Now let's add the properties we need inside our message schema. Okay, so the first is going to be the conversation ID. We need the conversation ID. Okay, yeah, we can remove this unique property. Okay, so we need the conversation ID. It's of type string, it's required, and it's indexed. Okay, so we index the conversation ID. We need the sender name. It's required, it's indexed. The receiver name, it's required, it's indexed. They are all of type string. Okay, and let's add, I'll add the sender picture. I don't need to explain why I'm adding this here as well, so we don't need it to be indexed. And then receiver. Okay, receiver, it's a string, required, true. Okay, and now let's add some information related to the message itself. So the body property. Okay, so instead I'll set the default to an empty string. The reason why this is not required is because maybe the sender or the receiver could send a message without a text. They could send maybe an image, okay, or a GIF, so without a body message. So set this to an empty string. And then I have the file. It's going to be type string, default empty. We have the file type. Okay, we have the file size. Okay, the file size is going to be a string, default empty string. The file name. Okay, like I said earlier, now I could have added these properties in an object, okay, but I decided to just separate them. It's still fine. You could decide to add them as just add one object, and then the object will have all of these properties. Okay, so maybe you could do something like this. You could say file as an example. Let me just copy this and comment this part out. Okay, you could say file, and then here you add all of these properties. Okay, so I decided to just separate them. It's still okay. Okay, then the next property I want to add the gig ID. So gig ID, this is going to be of type string and string, then default empty, and then we need the buyer ID. Okay, so buyer ID is going to be of type string as well, and it's going to be required. It's not going to have a default value, so we need to require this, required true. And then the seller ID as well, seller ID is going to be required. Okay, and let's go ahead and add some other properties like is read. So if the message is read or not, is read. It's going to be type boolean, and the default is going to be false. Okay, so the default is going to be false. This will be used to check if the message has been read either by the seller or by the buyer. Okay, and then I have another property called has offer. Has offer is going to be type boolean, and then the default is going to be false. Okay, so if the seller sends an offer, then this property will be set to true. Okay, and then now let's construct the offer object. Okay, so for the offer, we're going to have the gig title. Okay, it's going to be type string, and then default is going to be an empty string. Okay, and then we have the price that the seller is adding to the custom offer. So this is going to be of type number. The default is going to be 0. And then we have the description. It's going to be of type string, and then default empty. Then we have the delivery in days. Okay, so how long will the delivery be? So delivery in days is going to be of type number, and then default, that is how long the seller will take to complete the task. And then I'll have another property. I'll call this now old delivery. I'll call this old delivery date. It's going to be of type string. Default is going to be an empty string. So this old delivery dates will be like the first dates that the seller says they will deliver the service. And then if probably in the process of working on the service, the seller then requests for an extension. Okay, so if the seller requests for an extension and then the extension is approved, we're going to have the old seller, we still have the old delivery date, and then we have a new delivery date. Okay, so if the buyer approves the extension request from the seller, then we add the new delivery date here, and then we still have the old delivery date. Okay, and then I'll add the accepted property. Is going to be a boolean, and then the default is going to be false, and then I have the cancelled. Default is false, and it's going to have a type boolean. And then lastly, our created at is going to be of type date. You can add a default if you want, okay, but we'll just add the type as date. Okay, and one last thing we want to add is for us to remove the version key. So here I'll say version key, I'll set it to false. Okay, and let me see if I can format this document. Let's see. Okay, yeah, it has been formatted. Okay, so this is the message schema. We have lots of properties. Like I said, I could have just added this as an object the same way I added it for this offer, but I decided to separate them. It's fine. And then I already explained, I'm not going to explain again, probably in the later section, why I'm using the username, sender username, receiver username, sender picture, receiver picture right here.